All right, me. It is still January. It's like still mid-January. And I finished reading a book that I put off for a very long time, even though it was one of the first books that I had while starting this. Just because I knew that like I would feel very read by the book. I never felt, I don't even feel like I'm in a position to really go into that. But today I finished reading John Green's Looking for Alaska. Pulitzer Prize winner. I don't remember exactly which year Pulitzer Prize winner it won, but it is in fact a fantastic piece of literature for a young adult novel, and for me personally, because I do feel very read by this book. Yeah. I spoke about this with other John Green pieces, but like there was for a very long time this kind of reputation and jokes about John Green and about what girl did you date in high school that destroyed you completely, that you've had to write now 3 books or 2 or 3 books that are about these manic pixie dream girls, right? And the 2 that really stand out are this and Paper Towns, that involve that sort of that trope of a character, right? And it is unfortunately taking me, I feel like I might have spoken about this during Paper Towns, but it's definitely taken till now for me to really understand that what John Green is writing about, especially when it comes to both of these young women, is that they are, right, it's the kickers are people too, right? And to quote a famous football saying, or punters are people too, I don't remember which one it is, but in fiction, and a lot of times in real life, right, in a lot of fiction, the quote unquote manic pixie dream girl is portrayed and becomes a vessel for your generic white male protagonist to learn more about themselves and about the world, right? That's the story that so much often comes, is that is some generic white guy that has nothing going on in his life, and then meets this girl, and the girl is cool and funny and like is expressive and yada 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 yada, right? And then that's the basic story of those things. And unfortunately, because I was certainly like this in high school and for college, but then that fiction then translates into people's expectations of things, right? And that's not the way it should be, right? It's in reading this that I'm constantly reminded that I am not a nice person, as much as I try to be, right? I have historically not been, and nor will I ever be, truly a nice person. But within John Green's writing and what he's, both this and Paper Towns, is this idea that it's not really, it's just a reminder that like these are young girls that are going through a whole bunch of shit, and the people around them are treating them like objects, as well as they start to treat themselves like objects, because it's how they get away with some things, right? And instead of anyone having the moral culpability to stand up and say, no, this isn't right, this isn't the way that we should be doing things, right? Everyone just lets them be a car crash because the car crash is fascinating, right? And it's this obsession with, and it's not even a social media thing, right? It's not, right? But it is this obsession with, if I cannot have an interesting life, I need to put myself next to someone who does have an interesting life and encourage them to have as interesting life as possible, right? And the objectification of a young girl, not even necessarily as a sexual object, but as this all-encompassing person that just does whatever they want because they are quote-unquote more free than anyone else, and the eventual downfall of things like that, right? Yeah. I don't know, I feel like that's all I have to say on that. But yeah. Key points of things that also make me feel like this book reads me. And an obsession with death, but not in the macabre way, right? It is this fascination with, right, I think as Pudge describes it at one point, people's last words are a reflection of who a person is, and they're choosing to die as they lived, right? People that get to have last words. And so it is a fascinating look into people's lives. It's something that I was certainly much more interested in when I was in middle school and high school. Not as much now, but certainly when I was much more interested in not necessarily the way people lived, but how people chose to go out, right? Is something that certainly fascinated me a lot more when I was younger. Still fascinates me quite a bit now, but not in the same vein. So yeah. There's certainly an edginess to all of this, right? There's a lot of quotes from Alaska Young that are very edgy in a lot of ways, and they are, and the Colonel and everyone ends up having these kind of really like angsty teenage type quotes, which is another thing that I feel like always gets hated on, but it's true, right? Pudge eventually writes in the last essay that's part of this book about this whole feeling of teenagers feeling like they are invincible, right? And right, there's this truth to it, right, which is also why I'm so fascinated by working with teenagers, and why that's something I enjoy doing, right, is because they feel so much and they care so much, and it is fascinating, right? Because it's the whole when I was talking about Our Town by Thornton Wilder, of like, this feeling that like your greatest day and your worst day are someone else's average day, and your average day is someone else's greatest day in the world or worst day, right? And that's the thing that constantly goes through my head, and I think working with teenagers is fascinating because of that, right? Because they feel so much and they care so much about everything, right? And things that do not register to me, right, mean so much to them, and it is truly this wonderful and glorious thing, right? Um, but it goes within that feeling of like, because you are invincible, everything matters, right? And it is only when you stop being invincible that you can let go of things. And unfortunately, in within Alaska's story, right, everyone else learns that they are not invincible. Um, and unfortunately, it takes Alaska's death to realize that, right? Um, so yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. I feel like this book deserves a lot more time than I've given it, right? But so much of what makes this book interesting occurs in the last half, which is much shorter than the before, right? And um, yeah, yeah. I guess looking at the before stuff, um, you're dealing with these characters that are, they're caricatures in a lot of ways, right? And they are lovely and stupid, and yada 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 yada. Um, but there is this ongoing thing of just, they're young and they're stupid and they don't get the whole picture, and they will never get the whole picture, and they hang on to issues, right? Because they feel that they are invincible and then everything matters. And so all of these, this long series of minor issues just causes everything to fall apart, right? Um, Especially when looking at a girl like Alaska, who is, right, feels that she has fucked everything up constantly, right? She feels this guilt and this anger that she let her mother die, and that has constantly driven her. And then she fucks up again by being caught and almost expelled, except for the fact that she gives up her roommate. And she does it out of fear, and out of, because she feels that there is nowhere else for her to go, right? Not being at this school means that she has given up, right? And so she gives up her roommates instead of herself, right? And then this constant self-destructive behavior, of where it's not necessarily physically self-destructive, but it is this huge mental tax on everything, right? It is the having this boyfriend that is great and fantastic and is your rock, but because he is not here, then you're flirting with a whole bunch of other people. The obsession with feeling different and being someone else, right? And all of these things just kind of compound into, right? And she talks about it at one point when she starts crying into Pudge, of like, you know, the girl that you love and the girl that you want is the one that's funny and weird and different and pulls pranks, not the one that sobs over nothing, right? And it's the high school thing and the college thing and just the life thing of like, you know, we encourage that people act like themselves and choose to be themselves and portray themselves as themselves, but we give way more attention to people that play within very certain characteristics, right? And Alaska ends up doing that because it's a way for her to get what she wants, right? And instead of anyone supporting her or helping her, they just play along as well, right? So yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, that is John Green's Looking for Alaska. you know, I feel that here in the near future I'll be read by even more books, because there have been some that I'm anticipating are going to read me like a book. But yeah, that's that. That's Looking for Alaska.